I always knew that blending families wasn't going to be easy. When Daniel and I decided to get married, we both had our own emotional luggage. Mine was packed with fears of not being enough, and his came with a quiet patience I still sometimes don't fully understand. We met in a community book club, the kind where people show up more for the wine than the novels. And somehow, amidst all the distracted chatter, he noticed me. Back then, it was just Ethan and me. My little boy was barely 5 when Daniel came into our lives. His dad had been out of the picture since Ethan was 2, and I had come to terms with being a solo act. So when Daniel started showing up regularly, not just for me but with small gestures that included Ethan, a coloring book left on the couch, a superhero shirt that magically appeared on his birthday, I started to believe in second chances. Daniel proposed quietly. No flashy dinner, no beach sunset, just us, on a rainy Thursday, folding laundry and laughing about how Ethan had hidden one sock from every pair. He looked at me and said, "I want to do this life with you." And somehow, that felt more real than any grand gesture ever could. So we got married. A small ceremony. Close friends. Ethan walked me down the aisle. I cried more than I expected. It felt full. Like life was giving me a do-over, and this time, I wasn't alone in the trenches. The first year of marriage was full of the usual: burnt dinners, mismatched schedules, debates over who forgot to take the trash out. But it was also filled with stolen kisses in the kitchen, bedtime stories told together, and Saturday mornings where Ethan would pile into our bed before sunrise, wedging himself right between us. It felt right. It felt like we were building something steady, something lasting, until one day, something small, something so seemingly harmless, cracked something inside me. It was a Thursday afternoon. I remember because I had left work early to make Ethan's school's parent-teacher conference. Daniel had offered to come with me. It made me feel proud, like we were showing up as a team. The teacher greeted us warmly, motioning us to sit. "I've heard so much about Ethan's creativity," Daniel said, grinning. "He definitely got that from his mom." The teacher smiled, and then asked, "And you are?" Daniel answered casually, without missing a beat. "Oh, I'm the husband of Ethan's mom. Not I'm Ethan's stepdad. Not, this is my wife. Just, the husband of Ethan's mom." The words rang in my ears like a strange echo. I smiled, maybe even nodded politely, but something inside me froze. I couldn't place it then, but the phrase felt like a wall, like he'd drawn a line between us in a room full of crayons and alphabet charts. I sat through the rest of the meeting with my hands folded tightly in my lap, barely hearing the praise the teacher gave Ethan. Afterward, in the car, Daniel asked if I wanted to stop by for coffee. I said I had a headache, which wasn't a lie, really, because as I sat alone later that night, Ethan already asleep, Daniel in the shower, I kept replaying that moment. The husband of Ethan's mom. It felt distant, like I was just a role he acknowledged, not someone he claimed. I wasn't his wife in that sentence. I was a relation to someone else, a title, a bridge, and it hurt more than I wanted to admit. I knew, rationally, that he probably didn't mean it that way. Maybe he was just being factual. Maybe he was trying to make the teacher comfortable with our family dynamics. But still, it lingered. Was I reading too much into it? Was it silly to feel invisible over one sentence? And yet, when you've spent so long building up walls because of past hurt, when someone finally makes you believe again, words can sometimes cut deeper than you expect, especially when they come from the one person who's supposed to see all of you. The days that followed were strange. Daniel didn't notice the shift right away. I was still making his coffee in the mornings, still kissing him goodbye at the door, still laughing when Ethan made another ridiculous Lego creature with 3 heads and wheels for legs. But inside, I had started to retreat. It's the kind of thing people in long relationships never warn you about. How silence can grow like a shadow. Not all at once. Not with thunder or drama. Just little by little. Until you realize you're watching him from across the kitchen and feeling like a guest in your own life. I didn't talk about the sentence. I told myself I was overthinking. That it was just a slip of words. But it sat with me in the quiet moments. When Daniel reached over in bed, when he complimented my cooking, When he picked up Ethan from soccer practice, he always showed up, always helped, always tried. But something had shifted in me. And I hated it. One evening, after Ethan had gone to sleep, we were watching a movie. Or rather, Daniel was. I was scrolling mindlessly through my phone, barely registering the scenes. Daniel paused the movie and looked over at me. "You've been quiet lately," he said. "Is everything okay?" I forced a smile. "Just tired." He nodded, not pushing further, but I saw the flicker in his eyes, the kind that said he didn't quite believe me. And then came the text. 2 days later, I saw it on his phone, not snooping. Just a message that popped up while it lay on the counter. It was from his sister, Maya. "Maya, hey, how's your lady doing?" "Ethan's mom, I forget her name sometimes," Daniel replied. "Daniel, she's good. Busy with work. Ethan had a school thing this week. Funny kid. Ethan's mom." There it was again. I knew he wasn't trying to reduce me to that label, but it was like a splinter in my chest. 1,000 loving actions couldn't erase that phrase, because it wasn't just the words. It was the feeling. Like I was always going to be Ethan's mom first in his world. Like I would never fully be his. That night, I sat on the balcony with a blanket wrapped around me, the chill of early fall brushing my skin. I stared out into the quiet street, lights dimming one by one in the neighborhood, and I let myself cry. Quiet, frustrated tears. I wasn't mad at Daniel. I was mad at how easy it was for old fears to come rushing back. Years ago, when Ethan's dad left, he didn't even bother to say goodbye. One morning, he just didn't come back. No note, no explanation. I spent months telling myself I wasn't worth staying for, that I was always going to be just a mom and never someone's partner again. And now, hearing Daniel, kind, stable, wonderful Daniel, refer to me in that same detached way, even unintentionally, it cracked something I had spent years carefully gluing together. The next morning, Daniel found me in the kitchen staring blankly at the sink. He didn't say anything at first, just poured himself a cup of coffee. Then he asked softly, "Did I do something?" And I wanted to say no. I wanted to spare him the awkward conversation. But something in me knew this wasn't just about me anymore. It was about us. So I turned to him, took a breath, and said the thing I had rehearsed 100 times in my head. "It hurts," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "When you introduce me as Ethan's mom, or refer to me like that in texts, I feel like I'm disappearing, like I'm not your wife, just someone who came with a child." Daniel blinked, stunned for a second. Lena, I didn't mean." "I know," I cut in gently. "I know you didn't. That's what makes it harder, because you're a good man. But it still hurts." He was quiet for a long moment. Then he set his mug down and walked over to me. "I'm sorry," he said. "I honestly didn't realize. I guess I thought I was being respectful of the situation, like not assuming titles when talking to strangers or whatever." I nodded. "I get that. But sometimes I just want to hear you say it out loud. That I'm your wife. That this is real. Not something fragile or complicated or temporary." He reached out and took my hands. "It is real," he said. "You're not a placeholder. You're my person." And maybe it wasn't some grand declaration. Maybe it didn't erase all the old wounds. But in that moment, hearing him say that, with his voice trembling ever so slightly, I started to believe him again. After that morning, things didn't magically fix themselves, but the air between us shifted, slightly, carefully, like the way light filters through after a storm. Not blinding, but enough to know the sky is still there. Daniel started calling me my wife more often, not just in texts or casual conversations, but with intention, like he wanted me to hear it, to feel it. I appreciated it, really. But healing doesn't happen in sync with apologies. Sometimes your heart lags behind. The real test came a week later. We were invited to a family brunch at Daniel's parents' house. It was one of those rare Sundays where Ethan had a play date. So it was just the two of us. A couple again. No labels, no diapers, no cartoons playing in the background. I wore the green dress Daniel once said made me look like spring. I even curled my hair, something I hadn't done in months. He noticed. His eyes lingered for a moment too long. It made me smile, but when we arrived, everything felt off. Daniel's sister Maya was there, the one from the text. And for the first time since reading that message, I had to look her in the eye and pretend I didn't feel like a character in someone else's version of my life. She gave me a tight smile and a hug that lasted exactly 1 second too short. "Hey, you," she said brightly. "Glad you could make it." I nodded politely, swallowing back the irritation rising in my chest. The table was loud, full of half-overlapping conversations, clinking glasses, the smell of cinnamon and eggs in the air. I was doing my best to stay engaged, to feel part of this family I had married into. But then came the question, "So," Maya said, turning to me with a too sweet tone. "How's Ethan doing?" Still calling Daniel Mr. D. A few chuckles around the table. I forced a laugh. "Actually," I said, "he started calling him Dad. On his own. No prompting." The table fell into a brief hush, and then Daniel's mom clapped her hands. "Oh, that's lovely." Maya tilted her head. "That's fast." Huh. Her tone was syrupy, but the implication was sharp. Daniel, bless him, spoke before I could. "Ethan calls me what he's comfortable with," he said calmly. "And if that's Dad?" I'm honored. The table nodded. Conversation shifted, but the knot in my chest didn't loosen. Later, as we were helping clear plates, Maya pulled me aside in the hallway. "Hey," she said, her voice lowered. "Look, I didn't mean anything earlier. It's just, Daniel's always been kinda private about relationships. And well, you're coming into all this with a whole life already." I blinked. "A whole life," she shrugged. "Yeah. I mean, you've got a kid, an ex, history. It's a lot. I just don't want you to get too caught up in expecting everything to be picture perfect." I don't know what it was. Maybe the tone, maybe the smugness, maybe the months of holding things in, but something inside me snapped. I took a breath, steadying my voice. "You know what, Maya, you're right. I do have a whole life. A messy, imperfect, beautiful one. And Daniel chose to be part of it, not as a guest, but as a partner. So if you're having trouble adjusting to that, maybe you're the one who needs time." Her eyes widened slightly. She opened her mouth, but no words came. I didn't wait. I walked past her and straight to the car. Daniel followed a minute later, concern etched into every line on his face. "Everything okay?" he asked. "No," I said bluntly, "but it will be." He didn't push, just took my hand. And we drove home in silence, his thumb tracing circles against my skin. That night, we lay in bed, and I finally told him everything. About the text, about how I felt like I was always going to be Ethan's mom first in everyone's eyes, about Maya, about the pain I still carried from being left behind before, how the words he said weren't just words. They were echoes of things I hadn't realized still haunted me. He listened, quietly, fully, and then he said something I'll never forget. "Lena, I didn't marry Ethan's mom. I married you. The woman who makes this house a home, who makes my bad days better with a look, who made me believe I could be more than just a guest in someone's life. Ethan is amazing, and I love being in his world. But I chose you." Tears slipped down my cheeks. Not from sadness this time, but from the feeling of finally being seen. Truly, fully seen. The days that followed felt different, not dramatic, not cinematic, just softer. Daniel started using my wife like it was his favorite word. "My wife loves this show." He told the barista at our usual coffee shop. "My wife would love those earrings," he said while passing a boutique window. I knew he was doing it for me, but I didn't mind. It made me feel warm, like I'd reclaimed something I didn't know I'd lost. Ethan noticed it too. "Why does Daniel keep saying my wife all the time?" he asked one night at dinner, wrinkling his nose. Daniel looked up from his plate and winked at me. "Because I'm proud of her." Ethan rolled his eyes in the dramatic way only a 7-year-old can. Weird. We laughed, all three of us, and for the first time in a long while, I felt whole, not patched together, not cautiously holding my breath for the other shoe to drop. Just here, present, safe. But healing is a journey, Not a single moment. There were still mornings when I caught myself glancing at my reflection a little too long, wondering if I still looked like someone who could be loved fully. Still nights when the ghost of abandonment whispered cruel nothings into my ear. But Daniel, he met every crack with patience, every doubt with calm. He didn't try to fix me. He stayed. And sometimes, that's all someone needs. One weekend, we took Ethan to a local fall festival. There were hay rides, caramel apples, and a petting zoo that smelled exactly how you'd expect. Daniel carried Ethan on his shoulders half the day, pointing at scarecrows and laughing at his terrible jokes. At one point, a woman in line for kettle corn turned to us and said, "Beautiful family." And Daniel, without skipping a beat, smiled and said, "Thank you. This is my wife, Lena, and that's our son." Ethan, our son. It wasn't a correction. It wasn't awkward. It was natural. And I didn't cry. Not there. Anyway, but I did squeeze his hand a little tighter. And he knew. That night, after Ethan had passed out from sugar and excitement, Daniel and I sat on the back porch. Wrapped in the same old blanket from the balcony that night, I cried alone. The stars were barely visible through the light pollution. But it didn't matter. "I never wanted you to feel less," he said. Out of nowhere, I looked at him. "I know. I think I just needed to feel it, not hear it." He nodded. "I'm still learning. So am I?" I whispered. "And that's what love really is, isn't it? Not grand gestures or perfect labels. It's learning, over and over, how to show up for someone, even when they don't know how to ask. It's saying, 'You're mine,' in a way that makes them feel free, not caged. It's calling someone your wife and meaning it with your whole heart, not just because of a ring or a certificate, but because every day you choose them again. Time has this funny way of healing you when you're not looking. It's been 6 months since the conversation that changed everything between Daniel and me. I wouldn't say our life is perfect, what life ever is, but it feels rooted now, like a tree that survived a storm and grown stronger for it. I started journaling again, something I hadn't done in years. Maybe because, for the first time, I felt like I had a story worth recording. One entry, written late one Sunday night, read, "I used to think love was something you had to earn. That, if you worked hard enough, smiled often enough, proved yourself daily, maybe, just maybe, someone would stay. But now I know, real love doesn't wait for you to prove you're worthy. It pulls up a chair, looks at your messy, and says, 'I'm not going anywhere.'" Ethan turned 8 last week. He asked for a Minecraft-themed party and wanted to invite his entire class. Every noisy, sugar-hyped one of them. I was nervous, as usual, about making everything just right. But Daniel, in true Daniel fashion, took charge like it was a corporate merger. He built a cardboard creeper piñata from scratch, even painted it with painstaking detail. When Ethan saw it, his eyes lit up like fireworks. "You're the best." "Daniel," he shouted, hugging him tightly. Daniel smiled. "Hey, I'm not just Daniel anymore. Remember." Ethan grinned. "You're my bonus dad." It was something he started calling him a few months ago. Not stepdad, not Mr. D, bonus dad. Because, as he put it, it's like an extra gift. Not something I asked for, but something I'm really glad I got. That phrase stayed with me. Bonus. Like love that shows up when you've stopped expecting it. Like joy that sneaks in the back door when you're too busy cleaning the front steps. That night, after the party, we were cleaning up when Daniel stopped, holding a piece of wrapping paper in his hand. "Hey," he said, almost cautiously. "I've been thinking about something." I raised an eyebrow. "Should I be worried?" He laughed, shaking his head. "No, but maybe it's time we talked about having a baby." I blinked. It wasn't out of the blue. We'd touched on it before, but it had always felt like a someday thing. A maybe? Something distant and abstract. "Are you sure?" I asked quietly. "I mean, I come with so much baggage." He stepped closer, setting the paper aside. "You don't come with baggage. You come with chapters, and I want to be in the next one." My eyes welled up again. Every time I thought I'd reached the capacity of how much this man could love, he showed me there was more, deeper, Wieder, Kinder. We didn't decide anything that night. We didn't rush, but we talked about possibilities, about names, about what kind of parent he wanted to be. He said, I just want to be the kind of dad who shows up, always. And that's when I knew, whether or not we ever had another child, whether life surprised us again or not, Daniel was already showing up. Every day, not just for Ethan, but for me, for us. We went to bed that night, curled around each other, not out of habit or fear, but because it felt like home. And in the dark, just before sleep claimed us, I whispered something I hadn't said in a long time. Thank you for choosing me. He squeezed my hand. Every day, Lena, every single day, seasons changed. Summer folded into autumn, and our little corner of the world shifted with it. Leaves falling in bursts of gold and crimson, the air turning crisp. Our evenings lit by candlelight and soft blankets draped across the couch. Life moved forward, not in leaps, but in small, gentle steps. Ethan grew taller. He lost his front tooth and refused to smile for pictures for an entire month. He won a school art contest and insisted Daniel hang his drawing in the living room like a real painting. Daniel started teaching him how to ride a bike. It was one of those milestones that crept up on us. One Saturday afternoon, Ethan tossed aside his training wheels and said, I'm ready. Daniel steadied him down the driveway, murmuring encouragements, and I watched from the porch, heart in my throat. When Ethan finally soared forward on his own, wobbly but determined, he shouted, Did you see that? Dad, Dad? No hesitation, no adjustment. Daniel's eyes glistened as he turned to me. He didn't say a word, but he didn't need to. Sometimes, the most profound moments in love aren't loud. They're quiet, like the way he would kiss my forehead in the morning when he thought I was still asleep. Or how he always put a second pair of gloves in Ethan's backpack just in case. Or how he started leaving small notes in my journal, just a line or two, between my pages. You are more than enough. We've come so far. This chapter is my favorite. One chilly evening in late November, we were all sitting in the living room, Ethan curled up between us, the smell of hot cocoa in the air. A storm was tapping gently against the windows, and the lights flickered once, twice. Before staying steady, Daniel turned to me and said, I had a dream last night. Oh yeah, I asked, sipping my cocoa. He nodded. You and me, old, wrinkled, sitting in rocking chairs. You were bossing me around, and I was pretending to be annoyed, but secretly loving it. I laughed. Sounds pretty accurate. He leaned in, his voice barely above a whisper. I hope we get there. I looked at him then, not the way you glance at someone out of habit, but the way you truly see them, with all the scars and history and wonder. I think we already are, I said, because love isn't some far-off destination. It's right here, in the burnt toast, the school runs, the awkward family dinners, and the silent understanding between glances. It's in the way he says our son without blinking, in how he stood still when I almost walked away, in how he learned to say my wife like it meant everything, because to me, it did. And as we sat there, the three of us, wrapped in a life built not on perfection, but persistence, I realized something. I used to think I was broken, that I came with too much weight, too many cracks. But love, real love, doesn't fear the cracks. It grows in them. And sometimes, what you thought was the end of your story is just where the good part begins. Thanks for joining me today here on Love on Reddit. If today's story resonated with you, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more real, heartfelt stories every week. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Share your experiences or feelings in the comments below. Remember, love isn't always perfect, but every story matters. See you soon, and take care of your heart.